The young Earth had already endured fire, darkness, storms, and the endless beating of cosmic forces. It had survived the chaos of its birth and reached a fragile stability. In the vast oceans that now wrapped around the planet like a shimmering blue cloak, life continued its silent struggle. For millions of years, the first cells drifted, divided, competed, and adapted, simple, yet astonishingly persistent. But the next step in the story of life would not come from violence or disaster. It would come from patience. At this stage, Earth's oceans were a world of microscopic wanderers. Countless single-celled organisms floated through the warm waters, absorbing sunlight or feeding on nutrients carried from hydrothermal vents. They had no eyes, no limbs, and no thoughts, yet each one held within it the fragile instructions for survival. And slowly, very slowly, these instructions began to change. The first great shift came in the form of cooperation. For a long time, the cells lived only for themselves, competing for light, heat, and chemicals. But changes in the environment drove them toward a new possibility. Some cells discovered that combining their strengths made them more resilient than standing alone. One cell might be better at capturing energy from the sun, while another was better at storing nutrients. When these cells joined together, they formed tiny colonies, simple clusters of life that moved and behaved as a single unit. This was the beginning of biological teamwork, a quiet revolution. In time, these colonies became more organized. Some cells began to specialize. One group focused on gathering sunlight, another on protecting the colony, another on reproduction. This was the earliest form of what scientists today call multicellularity, the transformation from single, independent cells into a united body. It was not dramatic. It did not happen overnight. But it changed everything. With specialization came efficiency. With efficiency came strength. And with strength came the ability to try new forms, new shapes, new ways of surviving. Life was no longer a scattered collection of isolated individuals. It was becoming a community, but cooperation alone was not the only breakthrough of this age. Deep within these early organisms, a second transformation was unfolding, one that would define the future of every plant, animal, and human that would ever exist. Inside many early cells lived smaller cells, ancient bacteria that had once been separate creatures but were gradually absorbed. Instead of being digested, these bacteria continued to function inside their new hosts, providing energy in exchange for protection. Over millions of years, the relationship grew stronger. The smaller cells became permanent residents, then partners, and eventually essential components of the larger cell. These internal allies evolved into what we now call mitochondria, the power sources of complex life. This was one of the greatest accidents in Earth's history. Without it, the energy demands of complex organisms could never have been met. No animals, no forests, no humans, no consciousness. Just simple life drifting endlessly in the ocean, but with mitochondria, the door to complexity opened. Still, evolution had its own rhythm, slow, patient, and unhurried. The Earth was in no rush. Millions of years passed as these newly empowered cells refined their structures, stabilized their genetic systems, and developed new tools for survival. The oceans were becoming a laboratory of innovation, filled with experiments that succeeded or failed in silence. The world above remained calm. The skies cleared as volcanic activity slowed. Sunlight poured down in golden sheets, warming the waters and feeding the growing ecosystems below. The continents, still young and fragmented, shifted gradually across the planet's surface like drifting puzzle pieces. The air was changing as well. Oxygen, once rare and dangerous, began to accumulate, released by photosynthetic organisms that painted the oceans in shades of green and blue. For many early forms of life, oxygen was toxic. It destroyed their molecules, damaged their structures, and threatened their survival. But for others, it became the foundation of a new kind of energy, far more powerful than anything before. The world was dividing into two, those who feared oxygen and hid from it, and those who embraced it and rose to new potential. This shift marked the beginning of a new evolutionary era. Organisms that adapted to oxygen grew stronger. They could generate more energy, move more freely, and explore new environments. They became the architects of the next chapters of life, and yet, the world remained humble. No animals swam through the seas. No forests covered the land. No eyes had ever seen a sunrise. But within the oceans, a quiet complexity was brewing, a silent promise of the future. The stage was being prepared, the actors were evolving, the world was waiting for something extraordinary. And soon, the first truly complex organisms would emerge from the deep, carrying within them the legacy of billions of years of survival. They would move, sense, respond, and transform the planet forever. Life, once a mere whisper in the darkness, was becoming a voice, and that voice was growing stronger. Life on early Earth had already crossed several milestones. It had learned to survive, to cooperate, to adapt, and to build structures more complex than anything the planet had ever seen. But evolution was not finished. A new frontier waited, one that would shape the destiny of all life that followed. This frontier was intelligence, not in the human sense yet, but in its earliest and simplest form, the ability to sense, to respond, to choose. In the shallow oceans, where sunlight danced across the water like liquid gold, countless single-celled organisms floated as they had for millions of years. But something new was happening within a few of them. Their membranes grew thicker, their protein gates more selective, and their internal chemistry more coordinated. They were not simply reacting anymore. They were interpreting. At the microscopic scale, the ocean was a battlefield and a marketplace, a place of endless motion. Nutrients drifted in slow currents. Predators glided silently with their cilia. Chemical trails lingered in the water like invisible whispers. Now, some cells could detect these whispers, faint gradients of molecules that told a story about the environment around them. They moved toward food, away from danger. They were not thinking, but they were beginning to make choices, guided by primitive sensory systems. This was not intelligence as humans understand it. But it was the foundation of all intelligence that would ever exist. The birth of stimulus and response, of perception and action. Among these early pioneers, some began to cluster together more closely than ever before. They formed colonies where each cell played a different role. One sensed light, another sensed chemicals, another contracted to pull the group toward safer waters. These colonies were no longer just groups of cells, they were proto-creatures, organisms on the threshold between simplicity and complexity. Over time, these colonies grew into early multicellular life forms with specialized tissues. Certain cells became early nerve-like sensors. They could transmit electrical signals, tiny pulses of charged ions, across their bodies. These pulses were incredibly slow compared to future nervous systems, but they were revolutionary. Earth had never known anything like it. The first electrical communication allowed one part of the organism to warn another, to coordinate movement, to flee more efficiently from predators. A small wiggle now meant survival. A coordinated wave of motion meant dominance. In the vast darkness of deeper waters, another transformation was underway. Here, light rarely penetrated. Life depended on chemistry alone. Some organisms evolved patches of photosensitive pigments, not eyes yet, but primitive detectors that sensed light and shadow. Others developed pressure-sensitive membranes that felt the faint vibration of passing creatures. A world of invisible signals had opened, and life learned to read them like a secret language. Every improvement, no matter how small, reshaped the balance of power. Organisms that sensed better lived longer. Those that failed became food. Evolution was a relentless sculptor, carving sharper instincts and faster responses. Slowly, the first neural networks emerged, clusters of specialized cells that handled information, processed environmental cues, and triggered coordinated actions. These networks were tiny, only a few cells thick, but they were the ancestors of every brain that would ever exist. They represented a new kind of power, the power to react not blindly, but with increasing precision. With intelligence came behavior. Some creatures roamed in spiral paths to maximize food detection. Others learned to remain still to avoid predators. Certain organisms developed rhythmic feeding patterns, following day and night cycles. Life was discovering strategy. Even without thought, the oceans became a dynamic arena of experimentation. Every mutation that improved sensing, longer receptors, more sensitive channels, faster ion flow, became a stepping stone toward greater complexity. And as these tiny pulses of electricity spread through the tree of life, they laid the foundation for something Earth had never imagined. Creatures that could learn. The first hints of memory appeared in chemical form. If a certain reaction led to survival, the pathways that triggered it became easier to activate next time. Life was beginning to remember, forming biochemical patterns that echoed the past to guide the future. In this quiet, unseen revolution, intelligence did not explode suddenly. It grew like coral, slowly, steadily, building upon itself, constructing the frameworks that would later become minds. Millions of years passed. Neural networks grew more intricate. Light-sensitive cells deepened into small depressions, allowing early creatures to detect direction rather than just brightness. This was the seed of vision. Pressure-sensitive cells clustered into bands, forming early sensory lines that could detect movement at a distance. That was the seed of awareness. The world was no longer just a place to exist. It had become a place to explore, to react to understand in the simplest biological sense. Life had begun to experience the world, not just float within it. These quiet beginnings of intelligence marked one of Earth's grandest transitions. From chemistry came sensation. From sensation came response. From response came the first glimmers of decision. And from those glimmers, the path was set for everything that would follow, from the minds of ancient fish to the thoughts of early mammals, all the way to the human brain, capable of contemplating its own origins. But that story was still far in the future. For now, the oceans held their breath as the first sparks of intelligence shimmered through their depths, tiny but unstoppable, a silent promise that life would never again remain simple. Life in Earth's young oceans had grown more complex than ever before. Simple cells had evolved into coordinated colonies, colonies into multicellular organisms, and multicellular organisms into early creatures capable of sensing, moving, and reacting. But evolution was never satisfied. Each advance created pressure for another. And soon, the oceans would see one of the most dramatic shifts in the entire history of life, the rise of predators. For millions of years, life had been gentle. Most organisms floated passively, feeding on sunlight or drifting nutrients. But as intelligence, sensing, and mobility improved, a new possibility emerged. The idea that one organism could survive not by passively collecting energy, but by actively hunting another. It began subtly. Some tiny creatures developed faster cilia and could chase nutrient-rich particles with more accuracy. Others evolved stronger chemical sensors that allowed them to follow faint trails left behind by drifting organisms. These early hunters were not predators yet, but they were moving in that direction. The first true predators were small, almost invisible, but their impact was enormous. They developed simple feeding structures, tiny hooks, adhesive surfaces, or small openings lined with sharp proteins. Their bodies grew stronger, more flexible. They could lunge, twist, and capture. With these advantages, they began preying on other cells. This was a revolution. Life had consumed chemicals before, but now life consumed life. To survive this new pressure, prey organisms changed rapidly. Some grew thicker cell walls. Others developed spikes or toxic chemicals to deter attackers. Some simply became faster, evolving more efficient flagella that allowed them to dart away at the first sign of danger. Evolution accelerated into an arms race, with hunters and prey locked in a cycle of adaptation. The oceans became a theater of motion and conflict. A predator might glide silently toward a cluster of unaware organisms, its sensory cells detecting faint vibrations. As it moved closer, the prey scattered, fleeing in unpredictable directions. Some escaped, others did not. Each encounter shaped the next generation, rewriting the rules of survival. Over time, predators grew more specialized. Certain species evolved tubular mouths that could suck in smaller organisms. Others developed needle-like structures to pierce outer membranes and extract nutrients. A few grew larger and adopted complex bodies with multiple layers of tissue, early steps toward true animals. The first mouths. The first digestive cavities, the first muscular contractions all arose during this era. With hunting came movement, and with movement came structure. Muscles, primitive bands of contractile cells, evolved to enable stronger, more coordinated motion. Sensory cells became more refined, clustering into primitive neural nets capable of processing multiple signals at once. This created faster reactions, more precise attacks, and more complex strategies. The predators of this age were nothing like animals today, yet they were the ancestors of all future hunters, the fish that would stalk ancient seas, the reptiles that would dominate land, the mammals that would one day roam forests, and even the primates who would question their own existence. Their origins were humble, microscopic, and hidden beneath waves, but their influence shaped everything that followed. Meanwhile, prey organisms continued to innovate. Some adopted bioluminescence to confuse predators in the dark depths. Others flattened their bodies to glide more efficiently through water. Some formed larger colonies, where sheer size protected them. Cooperation itself became a defense, leading to more complex forms of multicellularity. This new dynamic transformed the oceans into a laboratory of speed, stealth, strength, and intelligence. Life could no longer remain still. To survive, it had to move, react, anticipate, compete. The early arms race pushed evolution forward faster than ever before. With each passing million years, predators became more efficient. Their sensory systems sharpened. Their bodies streamlined. Their internal chemistry adapted to fuel bursts of motion. They became the engines of evolutionary pressure, forcing prey to become faster, smarter, and more complex. In shallow coastal regions, early predators learned to ambush. They hid in thick microbial mats, waiting for movement. Some species rose toward the surface where sunlight illuminated the waters, using shadows to track swimming prey. Others descended into deeper zones where their highly sensitive pressure receptors gave them an advantage. Every adaptation, a faster twitch, a sharper sensor, a tougher membrane, echoed through the family tree of life. The oceans, once peaceful, now pulsed with the energy of pursuit and escape. And this tension was not destructive, it was creative. It drove the development of new organs, new tissues, new strategies. Predation triggered one of the most important evolutionary innovations, the body plan. Organisms began to develop definite fronts and backs, left and right, head and tail. A head was useful for placing sensors in one direction. A tail helped propel the body forward. This symmetry shaped nearly every animal that would ever exist, including humans. The rise of predators also created the foundation for the first complex ecosystems. No longer was life a uniform field of drifting cells. There were now roles: hunters, prey, scavengers, decomposers. Energy flowed through the oceans in structured paths, forming the earliest food webs. The world had changed forever. From tiny sparks of intelligence came motion. From motion came hunting. And from hunting came complexity on a scale Earth had never seen, but the story was far from over. The oceans held more secrets, more experiments, more revolutions. And soon, life would take its next great leap, a leap that would shape the entire future of Earth's biosphere. The world had changed forever. From tiny sparks of intelligence came motion. From motion came hunting. And from hunting came complexity on a scale Earth had never seen, but the story was far from over. The oceans held more secrets, more experiments, more revolutions. And soon, life would take its next great leap, a leap that would shape the entire future of Earth's biosphere. Predators, always under pressure to become more effective hunters, evolved larger eyes with better curvature. They could now track prey movements through shimmering water, predicting direction and timing. Prey, in turn, developed their own improvements, using better vision to detect ambushes before they happened. Some species began traveling in coordinated schools, their synchronized movements confusing predators who relied on sight. Others adopted colors and patterns that blended with their surroundings, becoming the first examples of camouflage. Vision transformed behavior. Creatures now began to chase, stalk, ambush, and flee with purpose. They explored new environments, coral-like microbial structures, underwater cliffs, deep trenches. They navigated obstacles with increasing ease. Seeing was no longer just an evolutionary advantage, it was becoming a survival necessity. As time passed, the diversity of eyes exploded. Some creatures developed compound eyes composed of hundreds of tiny lenses, each capturing a fragment of the world. These eyes could detect rapid motion, perfect for spotting predators. Others evolved spherical eyes with a fluid-filled chamber, allowing for sharper focus and greater depth perception. A few species, living in darker waters, developed large pupils that captured even faint traces of light. Vision adapted to every niche, every habitat. The oceans became a world of color and shadow, movement and stillness, and for the first time, life could experience it. With vision came complexity in communication. Some organisms began flashing bioluminescent signals, creating patterns of light that served as warnings or invitations. Mating rituals grew more elaborate, with bright pigments and fluid movements filling the shallows. Predators used patterns to confuse prey, while prey used contrasting shapes to startle attackers. Vision reshaped not only survival but also interaction. The rise of eyes also accelerated brain development. Processing visual information required more neural connections, faster pathways, and more sophisticated responses. Creatures that could interpret complex visual cues gained enormous advantages. Over millions of years, neural systems expanded, branching into new regions dedicated to analyzing shape, motion, and light. A simple patch of pigments had set off one of the greatest transformations in the history of life, the dawn of perception. Yet even as eyes evolved toward incredible complexity, the world around them was shifting. Tectonic plates moved slowly, raising continents and reshaping coastlines. Shallow seas expanded, filled with sunlight and nutrients, a perfect stage for further evolution. The oceans were becoming more vibrant, more competitive, more alive. The first true vision did not create the world, but it revealed it. And once life could see, it would never return to blindness, but evolution was not finished. Vision was only one of the innovations that would shape the path of life. New body plans were emerging, new systems of movement and feeding, new predators and prey. The stage was set for one of the most dramatic explosions of diversity Earth would ever witness, an explosion that would change the world forever. For billions of years, life had evolved slowly, cautiously, step by step. But now the world was different. Vision had sharpened the senses of predators and prey. Movement had become faster, stronger, more coordinated. Neural networks had grown more complex, and the oceans had become a maze of opportunities and dangers. All these pressures converged toward a moment unlike anything Earth had ever witnessed, and so began one of the most explosive events in the history of life, the Cambrian Awakening, an evolutionary eruption that filled the oceans with creatures so strange, so innovative, that nothing before them could compare. The seas of this era were warm and shallow, flooded with sunlight. Tidal pools stretched along vast coastlines, loaded with nutrients washed down from the rising continents. Storms stirred sediment and minerals, creating chemical environments rich in possibility. Oxygen levels in the water had increased, fueling new metabolic engines. Every factor aligned like pieces of a cosmic puzzle, setting the stage for transformation. Then life responded, not gradually, but suddenly. In a geological instant, species began to multiply in extraordinary forms. Bodies became more intricate. Limbs emerged. Jaws developed. Eyes grew sharper. The world, once dominated by simple worms and drifting algae, now teemed with creatures whose designs seemed almost impossible. Some formed hard exoskeletons, armor that protected them and gave structure to their bodies. For the first time, fossils of shells and plates appeared in abundance, capturing the moment when life learned to shield itself. With this armor came size. Creatures grew larger, heavier, more formidable. Others developed segmented bodies, each segment serving a different function. Flexible muscles allowed twisting, crawling, swimming, burrowing. Legs sprouted from their sides, giving birth to walking and scuttling. Antennae extended forward, sweeping the water for scents and vibrations. These were the ancestors of arthropods, the lineage that would one day give rise to insects, crabs, and spiders. Vision underwent a revolution of its own. Compound eyes expanded into multifaceted hemispheres with hundreds or even thousands of individual lenses. These creatures could now detect movement with stunning precision. Predators used this heightened vision to target prey with uncanny accuracy. While prey used it to sense approaching danger from far away, one of the most remarkable fossils from this era would later be known as Anomalocaris, a creature that dominated the Cambrian seas. With a flexible body, large frontal appendages shaped like grasping claws, and incredibly advanced eyes, it became one of the first apex predators in Earth's history. It roamed the oceans with grace and terror, snatching smaller creatures with lightning speed, yet even Anomalocaris was only one piece of the Cambrian explosion. Some creatures took on bizarre shapes, long, ribbon-like bodies with fins that flickered like wings, worms with circular, toothed mouths, soft-bodied animals with rows of bristles that carried them like millipedes through the sea floor. Tiny shrimp-like organisms with transparent shells revealing their beating hearts. Life was experimenting wildly, testing every possible form. Many designs were successful. Many more vanished forever, leaving only faint impressions in ancient stone. A critical innovation emerged during this time, the development of a centralized nervous system. Instead of scattered nerve clusters, some creatures built nerve cords along their bodies, forming the first true backbones of information flow. This single change would lead to the evolution of complex brains, spinal cords, and eventually vertebrates, the lineage that would one day include fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. feeding strategies diversified as well. Some creatures sifted particles from the water. Others scraped algae from rocks. Many became active hunters, chasing prey with speed unimaginable in earlier eras. Mouthparts grew sharper, jaws more powerful, digestive systems more efficient. Competition was fierce, but creativity flourished. The sea floors came alive with tunnels and burrows. Soft sediments bore patterns of movement, spirals, zigzags, loops, left behind by creatures exploring, feeding, escaping. For the first time, behavior began leaving permanent marks on the world, and these marks became part of Earth's fossil memory. As ecosystems grew more complex, food webs expanded into dense networks. There were now producers, grazers, scavengers, ambush predators, swimmers, crawlers, burrowers. Each creature played a role. Each role shaped the others. This interconnected web of life formed the foundation for all future ecosystems on Earth. The Cambrian awakening was more than an explosion of species. It was a transformation of nature's very architecture. It set the blueprint for almost every body plan that exists today. Vertebrates, arthropods, mollusks, worms, many of their defining features trace their origins back to this era. The oceans had become a world of innovation, diversity, and energy. For the first time, life was not simply surviving, it was dominating, sculpting its surroundings, rewriting the rules of existence. What began as simple cells drifting in darkness had now become a symphony of motion, color, and form. But evolution would not stop here. New challenges were rising. Land masses were shifting, climates changing, ecosystems becoming more competitive. And soon, the next great chapter of life would unfold, one that would take the first courageous steps out of the water and onto the land. The Cambrian oceans were bursting with life, a swirling world of color, motion, and complexity. Creatures of every shape hunted, grazed, burrowed, and swam through vibrant underwater ecosystems. But evolution was never content to remain still. Every new innovation created new opportunities, and new pressures. As life conquered the seas, some organisms began to face an unexpected challenge: competition. The oceans, once vast and empty, were now crowded. Food became harder to find. Predators were faster, hungrier, more specialized. Shallow waters were buzzing with activity, and in this intense struggle for survival, some species began drifting toward the edges of the world, the boundary between sea and land. At first, this boundary seemed impossible to cross. Land was harsh, dry, and unforgiving. No creature had lungs to breathe air. No plant covered the barren rocks. Waves crashed endlessly against the shores, creating pools that filled and emptied with the tides. Yet it was within these fragile border zones that life found its next great opportunity, the possibility of stepping beyond the sea. The first pioneers were not animals but algae. For millions of years, algae had drifted in sunlit waters, harvesting energy from the light. But some species began clinging to rocks in the tidal zone, where constant waves left them exposed to air for short periods. These algae developed tougher cell walls that prevented them from drying out. Gradually, they adapted to survive longer and longer above the waterline, these simple changes marked the birth of early terrestrial plants, tiny, green strands that clung stubbornly to the edges of continents. They were not true plants yet, but they were the first organisms to persist on land, capturing sunlight where competition was low and predators were few. Their presence transformed everything. With algae came oxygen production on land. When they died, their remains enriched the soil with organic material. Bit by bit, the land stopped being completely barren. It became a place where life could take hold. Meanwhile, in the shallow tidal pools, small animals began facing a dangerous problem: being stranded. When the tide retreated, pools evaporated, leaving creatures trapped in shrinking water. Many died. But a few evolved adaptations that allowed them to survive temporary air exposure. They developed thicker skins, slower metabolisms, and behaviors that kept them moist. Some of these pioneers were early relatives of arthropods, ancestors of insects, spiders, and crustaceans. They crawled across wet sand using segmented limbs, searching for fresh pools. Their exoskeletons protected them from dehydration. Their compound eyes helped them navigate the strange new world of sunlight and shadow. They were the first animals to set foot on land. Soon, more ambitious arthropods followed. Millipede-like creatures began scavenging decaying algae on damp shorelines. They grew spiracles, small openings that allowed gas exchange with the air. With stiff, jointed legs and armor-like plates, they explored further inland, staying close to moisture but testing the boundaries of terrestrial life. Land was dangerous, but it was also full of opportunity. There were no predators, no competitors, no threats, yet, back in the oceans, a new group of animals was quietly preparing to make its own leap: the early vertebrates. These creatures, descendants of ancient chordates, had flexible bodies with primitive backbones and muscular tails. They were excellent swimmers, but some species lived in shallow, muddy waters where fins sometimes acted like crude limbs. When drought struck or pools dried, these fish-like creatures were forced to wriggle or push themselves toward deeper water. Those with stronger fins survived. Over countless generations, these fins became more robust, evolving bones and joints that could support weight for short periods. Their skulls developed flatter shapes, allowing their eyes to peer above the surface. Their lungs, originally used to gulp air in oxygen-poor swamps, grew more efficient. Each adaptation brought them closer to a monumental possibility: walking on land, but this transition was slow, spanning tens of millions of years. At first, these early vertebrates simply used their limb-like fins to drag themselves from one pool to another. They were clumsy, vulnerable, and slow. Yet even this awkward crawl was enough to give them an advantage, letting them escape predators or search for new habitats. The land was changing too. Early plants were evolving into more complex forms. Moss-like carpets spread across moist ground, anchoring themselves with tiny hair-like structures. With more plants came more organic matter. Soil began forming. Microbial life flourished. And with these changes, the land became increasingly habitable. Insects, descendants of the first arthropod explorers, soon followed. They developed wings, delicate structures that captured air currents. The first flight on Earth did not belong to birds or bats, but to small insects hovering around ancient plants, searching for food. Flight changed everything. allowing them to colonize new territories and escape predators with ease. As plants thickened into primitive forests and insects filled the air, vertebrates continued their slow march toward land. Their limbs strengthened. Their ribs expanded to support breathing outside the water. Their skulls reshaped to handle new sensory challenges. The world was preparing for the first amphibious creatures, animals capable of living in both water and air. And then, at last, it happened. A creature with sturdy limbs and lungs crawled out of the water, rested its weight on solid ground, and breathed the air deeply. The world it saw was quiet, strange, and open, a place of endless possibility. The sea had been life's cradle, but it was not its final home. The march toward land had begun, and it would reshape the destiny of Earth forever.